Hey everybody, hope you guys are healthy and safe. I am outside Apple headquarters where Apple is going to announce new iPhone. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to head in, watch the keynote, then when the event is over, get my hands on the devices and give you guys my thoughts. Okay, let's enter the building. So this is the Steve Jobs Theater. It's quite a visually striking design. And then once you head inside, you'll see that there's actually no internal pillars. So it's a little bit of like an engineering marvel. Okay, so I've come back up here. It's far too crazy down there. I got my hands on the iPhone 15 Pro Max, and here are my thoughts. I'm gonna focus most of my thoughts on the Pro Max model because that's the best iPhone with the best camera. And if you guys know me, I've always been like a big flagship kind of guy anyway. So the iPhone 15 Pro Max has a new periscope zoom lens that can do 5x zoom at 120mm focal length. It's pretty big because I found previous iPhone cameras, the zoom to be not that great. So the Pro Max I played with for like 6-7 minutes. You can get pretty clean 5x zoom and digital zoom all the way up to 25 times. At 25 times, it seems to be a little bit soft, but you drop that down to like 10 times, 12 times, photos are looking pretty good. Now, the iPhone 15 Pro, that's the smaller model, not the Max. That one does not get the new 5x zoom lens. It sticks with the old 3x telephoto zoom lens from last year. So that may be a little bit disappointing. I think that's going to push a lot of people to buy the bigger Pro Max model. Okay, before I continue with my thoughts on the devices, I would like to take a minute to talk about today's sponsor, Sarge. So they made this. This is the Sarge 10,000 mAh Ice Mag power bank. So it's a portable battery pack that connects to the back of the iPhone magnetically, and then it will begin charging wirelessly. So it supports MagSafe, obviously. It's very sturdy. Check it out. I also love the semi-transparent design of the power bank in which you can see the internals of the battery a little bit. The RGB light also wraps around an L-shaped fan that rips at 8,000 RPM speeds. The fan will keep the battery and the iPhone cool while it's charging. There's also a USB-C port that supports input and output, so you can charge other devices too. If you're interested in the product, I have a link in the description below. Thanks to Sarge for sponsoring this portion of the video. The main camera of the iPhone 15 Pro and Pro Max also got a new larger sensor. Now I'm pretty sure it's still not going to beat the 1-inch IMX989 sensor in Android flagships, but you know, any increase in sensor size is good news. So you can expect better light intake ability, and also when you take photos, a little bit stronger depth of field, more bokeh. The main camera can now shoot at 3 different focal lengths: 24mm, 28mm, and 35mm. And it's doing, I guess, a digital crop of the main sensor, so you're not losing resolution. But I love being able to shoot at 35mm now because that's a tighter framing, because I think the main camera of most phones are actually a little bit too wide. Another new thing on the Pro Max that's actually new across all 4 iPhones is they finally switched the port from Lightning to USB-C. This is also huge for me because USB-C, it's the cable that charges all my gadgets. So now when I travel, I can just bring one cable, USB-C, for everything, instead of in the past where I have to bring a separate Lightning cable. But the Pro Max's USB-C port is actually a little bit better than the other 3 iPhones too. It's USB-C 3.0 and it supports data transfer up to 10 megabits per second. So it's the fastest port of all the iPhones. There's also a new chip that's in the 15 Pro and 15 Pro Max. It's the Apple A17 Pro. Really not that much to talk about with new Apple chips because Apple chips are always like, honestly, like half a generation or even a full generation ahead of what Qualcomm is doing. So it's the best mobile chip on the market. It's going to be the fastest. It's going to have the highest benchmark scores. It's going to be the most efficient. But what's interesting with the A17 Pro, it's the naming scheme because it's no longer called the A17 Bionic, but the A17 Pro. So this implies that Apple is potentially going to release more variations of the A17 chip down the line. So maybe there's going to be an A17 Max, maybe A17 Ultra. But nonetheless, the change to the Pro name does imply something else is coming. I'm also a fan of the new action button, which replaces the alert slider that's in old iPhones. So the button now, it's like a pressable, clickable button. And when you press it by default, it still mutes the phone, but you can now customize the button to do other things. You can set it so, for example, when you long press on the button to start recording a voice memo, or you can long press on the button to launch the camera app or to launch Instagram. The bezels of the iPhone 15 Pro Max and Pro are also a little bit thinner than before, like marginally. You probably won't notice if you pick up the iPhone 15 Pro phones by itself, but when you put it side by side with the iPhone 14 phones, then you will see the bezels are a little bit slimmer. Also, one more change that's subtle, but I think it's going to improve in-hand feel a lot, is the edges of the new iPhone 15 phones. This is the 14 Pro Max here, but the 15 phones, the edges are now rounded a little bit, which is good because the 14 Pro Max is very boxy and it's kind of like the edges are hard. It comes into like a sharp corner, and I did not like how that feel in the hand. And the 15 Pro and Pro Max are also lighter because it's made of titanium now, the frame, and titanium is lighter than stainless steel. So when I picked up the 15 Pro Max, it was definitely lighter than previous Pro Max iPhones that I've used. As for the two new Apple Watches, the Apple Watch Series 9 and Apple Watch Ultra 2, from the outside they look almost exactly the same, but there's a new chip, the Series 9 chip, that's going to improve performance a lot. The biggest addition is on-device Siri. So now you can ask Siri things or ask the watch to do stuff without needing to connect to the internet. It's completely on-device. On top of that, I really love the new gesture, the double tap gesture to activate an action on the watch. I think that's ingenious. And you know, I'm pretty sure it will work miraculously too with Apple products. They usually do work. So it's pretty awesome to just be able to answer calls, start a timer, whatever, just by double tapping your fingers like this. Overall, I think the products announced today they're not necessarily boring. It's definitely more exciting than say the iPhone XS series, like from 2019. Overall, I think the products announced today are kind of pretty good, pretty exciting. Overall, I think the products announced today, they're not like super crazy exciting, but they're also, overall, I think the products announced today are relatively exciting. They're not like as exciting as like when we first saw the iPhone 10, for example, but it's definitely not like one of those boring years like the iPhone 13 or the iPhone XS. Those years, there was like nothing much to talk about. But this year, I think there's enough tangible improvements to the Apple Watch and also the Apple Watch and also the iPhone 15 Pro Max. The new zoom lens, it's going to make a big difference. Oh, one more thing I want to talk about. So anyway, that's about it for my impressions on the iPhone 15 Pro Max. I will get my hands on the review unit very, very soon. So please stay tuned to my channel. I will definitely do camera testing against, not just the usual Samsung and Google, but I'm going to test it against the Xiaomi 13 Ultra, the Oppo Find X6 Pro, all the best camera phones out there. So please stay tuned. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. It will help me a lot. Thanks for watching.